All right, I'd like to call to order the September 25th meeting of the Sebastian City Council. Can you hear me? Okay. If you please rise for a moment of silence, and as you stand, please remember those people in the northern part of Florida. They're going to get hit pretty heavy tomorrow with this now Cat 4 hurricane. And then the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Vice Mayor Dixon. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's have a roll call, please.
Mayor Dodd.
Here.
Vice Mayor Dixon.
Here.
Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Councilmember McPartland.
Here.
And Councilmember Nunn.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, Council, are there any agenda modifications anyone would like to make?
No, sir.
Hearing none, then the agenda's been accepted by acclamation. Now, the Vice Mayor will read our brief announcements.
Okay. This Sunday, September 29th, the Gold Star Monument dedication will take place at 11 a.m. in Veterans Memorial Park. Tuesday, October 1st, Sebastian River High School Homecoming Parade will take place, kicking off at the Captain Hardy Boat Ramp, which is formerly known as the Main Street Boat Ramp, to Riverview Park. That begins at 6 o'clock. Saturday, October 12th, is the first Craft Club event in Riverview Park from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. There is only one council meeting scheduled for October due to early voting. That takes place Wednesday, October 16th. Thursday, October 17th, is the Sebastian Police Department Community Night Out. It's a great time for families. It begins at 5 p.m. and ends at 8 p.m. Friday, October 18th, more fun for families and the community in general. Halloween celebration at Riverview Park. The contest registration begins at 5:30 p.m. Trunk or treat begins at 5:30. Costume contest begins at 6:15, and the Sebastian Police Department will be showing Coco, the movie. That kicks off at 7:15.
All right, thank you. I have one other announcement. On October the 10th, here in the chambers at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the Indian River Taxpayers Association and Sebastian Daily are sponsoring a State of the City presentation that is going to be made on the 10th of October. 3 o'clock. It's open. Anyone's welcome. You don't have to be a member of the Taxpayer Association to come to this meeting. Okay. Also, Brian, do you want to mention the boat ramp presentation, the boat ramp workshop that's happening this week?
Yes, sir. So on October 3rd at 4 p.m., we are having a public meeting in regards to the Captain Hardy Main Street Boat Ramp. We're going to be submitting for a land and water conservation grant for potential improvements at that boat ramp area. Hopefully, we'll get some public input at that meeting, and that will allow us the opportunity to apply for that grant funding. Our plan right now, initial plans, look at dredging that entire area to improve access at the boat ramp, but community input is requested on October 3rd at 4 p.m. here in council chambers.
Yeah, if you like.
When you're finished, I have one more.
If you want to have an opportunity to input into what the city's trying to do with some of these grant funds, please come to these meetings when they're announced. I think the last one we had, no one showed up, and it was, I don't know whether we can assume that nobody has anything they want to say or that nobody cares or what, but please, for the public, they're being put on by the staff to try to get your input on this stuff. So thank you. Yes, ma'am.
There was one more announcement on the next page. Early voting, as I had mentioned, it does begin October 21st through November 2nd in council chambers from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. each day.
All right, Barbara.
Aww.
You can come forward if you would, please. Okay, I'm not going to read this whole thing. I'm going to let you hold us if you would. Okay. This is a proclamation by the state's, the Florida Local Government Information Systems Association that is recognizing Barbara for her accomplishments within that. So let me read this. Barbara's reached a milestone achievement with her 10-year membership in good standing with the Florida Local Government Information Systems Association. She displays a commitment to providing the best in technology services through education and sharing of ideas, concepts, and solutions with other Florida governments, which demonstrates her pledge of innovation and best practices to the residents of Sebastian. We're pleased to recognize Barbara's 10th anniversary as a member of this organization. So I'd like to give Barbara a hand. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Barbara. You and your team do a great job for us here. We really appreciate all the work you guys put in. Thank you.
Okay, we now have a presentation on our strategic plan. I think Richard Levy's going to do this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor, council members, good to see you again. Thank you for the opportunity to do this. This is part of the continuing process of your development of your strategic plan. This is a very short presentation. I know you got budget hearings tonight, a lot to do, but I want to report back on the public participation component of the plan. This is the process we've been through so far. The last check mark is when we're gathering public input on the mission, vision, values, and goals. And what we're going to ask tonight, after you've reviewed this and given appropriate comment and direction, to direct your city manager to develop specific language to come back and then start the harder work of really getting into the nuts and bolts of the plan and developing objectives and measures. And ultimately, this will all align with your budget and operations. So we're finishing up this first very important phase of sort of establishing the direction. And the public participation process really evolved out of your desire to engage the public. Some organizations don't do that. You did that, and we commend you for doing that. It is essential to the strategic planning process to make sure that your plan is validated with your constituents. We developed a number of opportunities to do that. We've had city council orientation, we've had workshops and meetings. We held 2 community meetings. I think your council agenda summary item noticed the dates of those meetings, and the city actually created an email address that the public could send their observations and comments on. Those are the 2 meetings we had. On August 22nd, the mayor was there with the city manager, did some introduction, and we encouraged the public to participate. And residents, not only, I'm going to show you the scorecard in just a moment, could score these statements, but we also gave them an opportunity to express open-ended comments, and we got a lot of those, and I think you've been provided with that information. We used a community comment form, which there it is right there, where the public could mark whether to include or not include certain statements. This is a little bit different than the process we did with you and your senior staff, where we asked you to identify which components of the mission, vision, and values were important to you. So we scored those as a number in terms of response. With the public, we want to measure how they feel about these things. And so if they felt positive about it, they gave it a score. If they were indifferent, they left it blank. We gave it a 0. But if they felt like it shouldn't be included, that they had some sort of negative feeling about it, we gave the public the opportunity to do that. And you'll see one particular item in here, which is really very interesting that we actually had a negative score on one of the items. So we used a PowerPoint presentation similar to the way we've done this with you. And each member of the public had a chance to score these cards. And I'm going to just go very quickly through what we asked them to do. These are statements you should be very familiar with. These are things that came out of our process with you. And so we asked each of them to give us a response as to whether these should or should not be included in the mission statement. And I'm going to give you the sort of raw scores here, but what the most important part of this presentation is when I compare what we did from the city survey with you and your senior staff to the public. I think that's the most interesting. So I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because you're going to see these tables again. We did the same thing for vision. We asked the public to let us know their thoughts on the vision statements. Again, there are the scores, and remember, their scores are inclusive of any potential negative scores. So anything that shows positive really is and I think the total number of respondents was 24. So if you get a score in the 20s, they feel pretty strongly about it. Same thing on values. We measured the public's interest and support for certain specific values that were identified in our process with you. And you can see some of them scored really high. And that tells us a lot. In this instance, you can see innovative initiatives. There might have been some fear about what that meant. Maybe there was concern that it might mean spending a lot of extra money. I don't really read too much into that other than you look at the top two and you really get a sense of what the public's really supportive of, and maybe in innovative initiatives, which are things you probably are doing inherently already. That may not be so important to them, but as an organization, it's probably important to you. And then we measured, of course, the goals. And you can see how they came out. And you can see, well, let's just get right to it. So this is a little summary of how important public participation is. I'm going to jump to really the meat. So on the green chart, you see the results of the survey that we did with you and your senior staff. And in this one instance, there were 5 on the left, 4 on the right. This is the only instance that occurred. We kind of combined a couple of these from your survey to the community input to kind of compress it a bit, and it had to do with hometown, coastal charm, desirable place to live. We kind of made that small town feel. But you can see how important the feel of the community is to the public. And I think that's one of my takeaways, is that is really important, and that's really instructive to us as we help you develop your plan. That's kind of a guiding principle. And it's something that we can always remember is one of your major focuses. And you can see how the others are sort of fall similarly in order here. The vision, almost an identical ranking. In fact, I think it is an identical ranking of compared to the survey to what the public felt. This is really good news in that as an organization and the public, you guys are moving and pulling in the same direction. That you don't see that a lot. And that tells me, but there again, there's the hometown vibe, coastal charm right at the top, and 20 is a very strong score. So you can see the alignment there. On values, public transparency really is paramount, was to you as an organization as well as to the public. There's that coastal charm again, even as a value. Some might say that could or could not be an organizational value. The public felt that it was. You can see the alignment. The innovative initiative right there tells us a lot that maybe that's not so important to the public as a value to your organization, and that's very instructive. And finally, the goals. There's hometown feel and coastal charm, smart, sustainable growth. Depending on how you would interpret that as a member of the public, they may feel like, smart, sustainable growth means protecting our hometown charm and feel. So I don't read too much into that. I think they're sort of parallel objectives. Clearly, public safety came out as a very high score also, while organizationally, maybe it didn't rank as high. And remember, the city survey, we had 10 or 15 of these, right? So what you're seeing is the top number. And the fact that it made it to either one of these lists is probably something that tells us it needs to be included in your goals. So our takeaway is that it was a successful public participation process. We see a lot of alignment. We got some good insight into some things maybe the public isn't looking for. And I think in our discussions with the city manager, we would love to open it up for any discussion or comment from the council, but I think this gives us a really good sense of the direction we need to go to come back to you with the actual specific mission, vision, and statements to make sure that it sits with your understanding of these results.
Okay, good, thanks. Okay, council, before we discuss it, I'm going to open up to the public, see if anyone wants to say anything, if that's all right. Okay, is there anyone in the public who would like to address this item? All right, seeing none. Council, who wants to go first?
Well, I think from our discussions with the team, with Dr. Levy and his team, all of the goals and objectives that we set out, the citizens have said pretty much the same thing. So I think what we should do now is move forward, direct the city manager now to have this put into one bundle here so that we can actually get this plan up and running. So,
Anyone else?
Yeah, I would say I agree with Councilmember Jones on that. Done a good job of getting this together. I'm glad the results look like we're in line pretty closely as a city with our residents. I mean, a couple little things to think about, but that's what this is about, is knowing what we need to think about. So, no, I'm looking forward to getting it moving as well.
No, same.
Okay, I don't know that we need a motion to do that. Brian, have you got what you need to move forward?
Yes, sir.
Okay, would it be possible for you to come back to us at our October meeting with with some form of a schedule on how long and when you think you can take the next step on this?
I mean, I can tell you already, I don't know that we need to bring a schedule back in October. I think by the first meeting in November, we will have all of this worked out and bring it back to you all. Because we've got some work behind the scenes to start with staff, but I think as far as mission, vision, values, and the council goals level, we can have those established by the first meeting in November to bring back to you all for your approval. And then as long as, I don't want to speak for our consultants, as long as they're available the first meeting in November.
Of course.
And then from then, it's really legwork with our staff to align their goals and objectives with what council's goals are.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because for anyone out there, there's some very interesting statements in the following part of the presentation documents that were not included in the presentation. There's a whole series of statements from the public on mission, vision, values, and there are things like, do not want growth, that kind of stuff. And so these statements are very interesting. So if you want to go out and look at the presentation on our website, you can do that and read that stuff. It'd be interesting to do that. So, okay, if you're comfortable, Brian, I think we're okay with that. We agree with your proposal.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Levy, and have a safe trip back, sir.
Yeah. Okay, now I think Karen Miller's going to do this.
So,
Are you?
Mr.
Or
Mayor,
who's going to do? All right.
Yeah, I'll give an update.
This is a staff presentation on our new capital improvement projects map tool, which will let you actually go online and take a look at all the capital improvement projects and where they are in the city and what their status is and so forth. So,
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I just want to introduce Ross. So Ross is our GIS guru. He's our one-man show in GIS for the city. So all the amazing maps and everything that you see GIS related are thanks to Ross. And I know Karen has had a hand in this as well, but Ross, they work together and come up with the GIS website so that you all can track our capital improvement projects from previous years and as we continue to go forward. So I'll turn it over to Ross and let him kind of show you all what he's come up with.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Council. As Brian mentioned, I'm Ross Kelly. I'm the Geographic Information Systems Technician here for the city. I've been here for about a year and a half now. This is my first time presenting to you all. So the map that we're going to be explaining to you tonight is our new capital improvement project web map. So over my year and a half here, one of my big things has been to do a lot of more digitizing of our maps and our records for public use. And so this is just one of the, I believe I'm up to 11 now, of online web maps in our collection. So before we get to the map itself, one of the main reasons that we picked this as one of the maps to make was to increase public transparency. Because even as was mentioned in the prior presentation, public transparency is one of the key things that everyone is looking for. So by bringing this information online, not only will the public be able to access it more, but it also make the city, the public more aware of how and where the improvements are being made around town, and just to make it easier to show how the tax dollars are being spent. And then by seeing it on the map, it has more of a connection to the residents as they see, like, okay, we're doing this. And then also, and one of the main reasons I'm here with the city is to help increase the use of GIS methods and maps to make the information more accessible to the public. So for the capital improvement project map itself, when you open it online, and I had the code at the beginning, I also have it back at the end as well. The map can also be found under the Finance tab on the city's website. You see this big screen pops up with the map in the middle, and there's some information around the border. So I'll go through some of this information around the border to kind of explain what it is. And starting on the panel on the left, because when the map loads automatically, it'll show all of our capital improvement projects that are planned, and also all of the past projects going back to 2020. And on the left here, you can sort the projects by department, and you have a few choices like airport, community development, facilities, parks, roads, and stormwater. So if you wanted to filter it down, you can check the boxes next to any of those categories, and you can see just the past, current, and future projects for each of those departments. And then right below that, we have you can sort by project status as well. And we grouped our projects into 3 different statuses: planned, which means that it does appear on the capital improvement plan. So it's something that's in the works and will eventually happen. In progress, which is more of the ones where the process has already begun, either the work is being started out in the field or the engineering designs have begun. And then lastly, the completed projects. And so all of the project statuses, if you look at the top of the map, I have 3 counts at the top, which group together how many planned projects we have, which currently, as of today, is 22. And then we have 15 active projects and 30 completed. Once the new capital improvement plan is passed, I will go through that and try to pull out anything new that might be in there for planned for the future. And then lastly, over on the right side panel is the list of all the projects if you wanted to find something specifically just by name, park improvement, road improvement. And then as you make selections on the left menu to sort by status or department, the list on the right will change to show you only the results that you might be interested in. So I'm going to pick an example here that we selected. And so when you select either from the map itself or from the panel, the map will automatically zoom into the project. And this project I selected is the upcoming Barber Street sidewalk improvement over by the railroad crossing. And when you select it, it will highlight your selection in purple, which this is kind of a narrow shape, so it's not really the easiest to see, but you can but on the screen it'll pop up in the purple so you can easily see it. And then a pop-up box will appear on the side with some more information. And so in the pop-up box, it will give you a short summary of what the project entails, like for this one, construct 1,000 feet of new sidewalk. It'll tell you the department, the budget year, the status, and for some of them, we do have a little bit of a description after the status, like this one is currently in design, so it's in progress. And then it will also give you a link to the current capital improvement plan, which right now is 23-24, but that will be changed upon approval of the new one for 24-25. And then we'll also take you to the database of all of our past capital improvement plans. And so overall, that is our new capital improvement project web map. The code on the QR code on the right for anyone in the audience will take you automatically to that map. And then the code on the left will take you to our entire GIS map gallery with the 11 web maps that we currently have. And then I also have the direct link to the capital improvement map on the bottom. And like I said before, the capital improvement map itself can be found on the Finance tab of the city website, and our map gallery. If you go to the departments and Public Works, you'll find the link to that as well. And thank you for listening to my presentation, and I'll open up if anyone has any comments or questions.
Okay. Thank you. Great job. This is awesome.
Thank you.
I like it.
I played with it this afternoon. It's really neat. You can jump from project to project and play with the map all over the place. So
It gets addicting.
the map's
doesn't it?
scary when you first bring it up. It's Bing, but
Yeah.
it's really neat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job, Ross.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're now up to public input. If there's anyone from the public who would like to address the council on something that's not on the current agenda, please come forward. No? Anyone on Zoom?
I have one with their hand raised.
Bring them on.
Hi, this is Terry McGid checking in. I just want to comment and make a point of how important live presentation of the council meetings and these projects are. It's critical. If you can't make the meeting, you can always Zoom in. And if you can't Zoom in, you can always YouTube. And if you can't YouTube, you can always Facebook. Without this public access, the public who can't make the meeting are just flying blind. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
That is it.
Okay, council, we're now on to the consent agenda.
Move approval, consent.
Second.
Is there any comments on the consent agenda items? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. Let's have a roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Dixon,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn.
Yes.
And Mayor Dodd.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, we have no committee reports. Community Development Agency, I will now recess the city council meeting and open the Community Redevelopment Agency meeting. And we have consideration for resolution I guess it's 025-01 or 25-01, which is the community development budget. Mr. Benton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in our budget workshops, we had discussed the CRA budget in detail. I'll just hit a few key points within the budget so that you all are aware. Within the CRA budget, one of the key items that we're doing this year is transitioning from a third-party outsourced landscaping company to kind of taking that back on in-house within our Parks Department. So the funding falls within the CRA. So CRA funds will be utilized to pay for that staffing within the Parks Department that will be allocated completely down to the CRA landscaping area. There's also some additional equipment that will be involved with that, but that's all shown in this year's CRA budget. We've also, within FY 24-25, we have budgeted additional funds for our working waterfront dock improvements or expansion that we have as it's currently in design right now. But we started that funding over future years. We also have a working waterfront dry line project and that you all have seen in Twin Piers dry line that you all have been notified. We did receive our fine grant funding. We're waiting for them to submit to us the documentation that'll come before you all. So those funds are shown in here, but obviously it'll be reducing the CRA's contribution to those funds via the grant. We will have a matching element. The CRA maintenance equipment, that is the equipment that is necessary for the city to take over the landscaping responsibilities within the CRA. Once again, that's a one-time cost for those. Obviously, in future years, we'll see some replacement, but we'll get future years out of that. You see Main Street boat ramp dredging that is shown in there for design and then construction in a future year. We are soliciting grant funds for that. So that'll be coming to you all, and then the Main Street shoreline stabilization as well. And then the final, key thing, one of the key things that we're doing in the CRA is looking to improve our pedestrian crossing signs on Indian River Drive. There are some that have already been installed, but it will just notify people as they're driving down Indian River Drive, give a little bit more notice to those crossing zones area. So we request approval of Resolution 25-01 for the CRA budget, and we're here to answer any questions that you all have.
All right, is there anyone from the public who would like to address this item? Seeing none. Council, what's your pleasure?
Move approval of Resolution 25-01.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I was just going to say the CRA is the heart of Sebastian. It's where we all go and enjoy what this town really offers us, the beauty of the riverfront. So it's important that we pass the budget to keep enhancing it.
Yes.
Sorry, it's been a week.
Okay. It's a very good comment.
Thank you.
Yes. Anyone else? Then let's have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Mayor Dodd?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Dixon?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, I will now close the Community Redevelopment Agency meeting and reconvene the City Council meeting. And we're on to item 11, public hearing. That's 11A, which is ordinance O-2417. Would the city attorney like to read the ordinance title?
Yes, sir. Ordinance number 02417, an ordinance of the City of Sebastian, Florida, amending Land Development Code Section 54-4-21C4, use restrictions for outdoor storage facilities and mini storage facilities as a conditional use in the Triangle Overlay District. Land Development Code Section 5426.4, parens 28. Specific criteria for approving a conditional use. Land Development Code Section 54-522.2, definition of terms, new definition of outdoor storage facility, providing for severability, repeal of laws in conflict herewith, providing for codification, scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, so staff, would you like to make a presentation?
Good evening. This is the second and final reading for Ordinance 2417. At the first reading, you recommended that we extract and pull out the mini storage, and so what's presented before you tonight is purely outdoor storage facilities without any mini storage in reference. So that's what you'll see proposed here tonight, and the applicant is also here to answer any questions. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have of me as well.
Okay.
And
Sounds good. Would the applicant like to make a presentation?
Good evening, Council. My name is Jonathan Rodeback. I'm the attorney for the applicant, Todd, Bill, and Daniel Brognano. I'm available here to answer any questions. Also, it was discussed at the last meeting, and at the risk of sounding ungrateful, we are very appreciative that this was passed on first reading, but one of the requirements that was imposed was the increased 25-foot buffer. Typically, under scenarios like this, and when non-residential uses and residential uses abut each other in your code, it's typically 10 feet. The applicant respectfully requests one further minor amendment to reduce the buffering requirements from 25 feet to 20, which would be double the typical buffer, and also be consistent with other properties along 512. The applicant has approached city staff, who I understand confirmed it was consistent with other properties along 512.
so the other properties along 512, it appears that they have a 20-foot buffer running on 512.
And we just respectfully request that that be reconsidered tonight, but again, don't want to sound ungrateful that it was passed upon first reading, and any other additional questions that come up tonight, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we respectfully request that this be approved with the minor amendment that we discussed tonight, and Yes, that concludes my
good.
presentation. Thank you.
All right. Anyone from the public like to address this item? Is anyone on Zoom?
Nobody's raised their hand.
Okay, council, what's your pleasure?
I'll go, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at the map of the property compared to Ashbury, compared to the elementary school, which it actually butts up against City of Sebastian property. It's actually not butting up against Ashbury except at the very, very, very peak. So the buffer for we'll call it the west side of the property is pretty much open anyways. There's nothing there. There'll never be anything there because that's part of the elementary school property. Part of it's facing the road and part of it's facing the Ashbury driveway because it's a triangle. I see no reason why 20 feet's not more than enough, that should be acceptable. I don't have a problem making a motion to approve this ordinance 024-17 with the adjustment of a 20-foot buffer.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Staff, do you have any issues with?
With a 20-foot?
Well, the thing we have to remember is this isn't just that piece of property.
Right.
Agreed.
This change is for all, it's for the whole triangle district, so it's not just that piece of property. So my question would be, are there other places within the triangle that in the future, if someone chooses to do something like this, which we've now opened it up and they are going to be able to do, okay, is a 20-foot buffer sufficient?
It is sufficient.
Okay, good. That's all I wanted to hear. All right. So, Councilmember Nunn, did I hear you say that you wanted to modify section B1 to be 20 feet as opposed to 25?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I heard.
That is what I intended with my motion, yes.
Did you hear what you need down there, Madam Attorney?
Or do you need it specifically mentioned?
We have to be careful when we're making a change on a second reading. So let's be clear that we're just making a minor change, and let's read specifically in the motion, because we don't want to get in a situation where we're changing the intent of the proposed ordinance.
Okay. So, the motion
Because it's okay
should,
to have a second reading and make minor changes in between, but you don't want to make substantial changes. So let's be sure to make a good record as to what the changes are and whether you're finding that those are minor. And so we have a good record for any problems in the future.
will the second withdraw on the motion so we can restate it?
Sure, withdraw.
Okay.
Right.
And then you'll withdraw that
I
motion?
withdraw, and I
Now,
will
when you
restate my motion.
Okay,
Yes.
let's try to restate it.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve. I'm sorry.
Let's make sure do you have something to add before that?
The only thing that I wanted to add is there was a reference to B1, which refers to the setbacks, but also take a look at B2 paren B, which talks about the vegetative buffer being 25 feet as well, so it'd be changed to 20 feet in that paragraph as well. I just wanted to bring that to the council's attention. That way you didn't have any inconsistencies within the code, if you agree, Madam Attorney.
I see it the first, hold on. Sorry, yeah, that's correct. It's right there.
All right.
Okay.
So, can I-
B1 and B2B.
So I was just going to ask the Community Development Director, is that acceptable for what you're pushing? You recommend that?
Yes.
Can I, Ms. Bernard, is that a substantial change, would you find, with the Land Development Code, in your opinion, in your experience? Is that a substantial or minor change?
I would say it's a minor change.
In your experience?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now you
Thank
can
you, Council.
restate.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I want to make a motion to approve ordinance -024-17 with a minor adjustment to items number B1, changing the setback to 20 feet, and 2B to a 20-foot opaque vegetative buffer.
You good? Okay. Now, do we have a second on that? Second? Yeah, okay. All right. Any comments from anyone on the staff? I mean, on the council? Okay, let's have a roll call, please.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Mayor Dodd?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dixon?
Yes.
And Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, we're now on to
The millage?
the millage. This is Resolution R 2457, and would the city attorney like to read the resolution language?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a public hearing in accordance with Florida Statute Section 200.065, which reads in part, prior to the conclusion of the hearing, the governing body of the taxing authority shall amend the tentative budget as it sees fit, adopt the amended tentative budget, recompute its proposed millage rate, and publicly announce the percent, if any, by which the recomputed proposed millage rate exceeds the rollback rate computed previously. The first substantive issue discussed shall be the percentage increase in millage over the rollback rate necessary to fund the budget, if any, and the specific purposes for which ad valorem tax revenues are being increased. During such discussion, the governing body shall hear comments regarding the proposed increase and explain the reasons for the proposed increase over the rollback rate. The general public shall be allowed to speak and ask questions prior to adoption of any measures by the governing body. The governing body shall then adopt its final millage rate, its tentative or final millage rate prior to adoption of the final budget. While reading together, the law indicates that they must consider the millage rate first before the budget. There's two resolutions, and I'll be reading them together. Resolution number R 2457, a resolution of the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, adopting a final millage rate of 3.1955 mils for the calendar year 2024, providing for conflicts, scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. The next resolution is number R 2458, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, adopting the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024 and ending September 30th, 2025, making appropriations for the payment of operating expenses, capital expenses, and for the principal and interest payments on the indebtedness of the city in the city's general fund, special revenues fund, capital improvement funds, golf course fund, airport fund, and building fund as provided for in Schedule A, attached here too, establishing authority of the city manager to implement the budget, providing for severability, conflicts, scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, would the city manager like to announce the final millage rate?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor, City Council, the FY 2024-2025 final millage of 3.1955 is recommended, which in accordance with state statutes is 7.02% higher than the computed rollback millage. These revenues will be applied to general fund expenditures projected for FY 2024-2025. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to have a budget overview by our finance director.
Summary and a notice of this meeting was published in the newspaper this past Sunday, and that's in accordance with state law. You've got to do that within a certain time frame. So this is pretty much almost exactly like the presentation we gave on at the first reading. We basically summarize all the funds and go into the property values and millage. The general fund budget increased 3.11%. We had some additional positions as well as pay adjustments. Operating expenses alone increased 2.5%. The personnel cost was up not because of the health insurance premiums, 12% increase. We had the 5% pay increases, and we added 4 full-time positions in the general fund. Those 4 positions, one in the MIS department, as well as 3 in parks. 2.5% increase of the operating costs. Most departments had a small decrease or even went down. As far as the enterprise funds, the golf course, you'll be entertaining, well, the city manager will present a proposed rate increase later this evening. And with that, the golf course can set aside some funds for capital projects. The airport fund is paying back the loans to the discretionary sales tax fund. And of course, they have quite a bit of matching funds allocated from the DST fund for grants that might be achieved. Building fund, one less permit technician is budgeted. Revenues continue to be strong enough to more than support that department. American Rescue Act Fund, just a reminder, we've got to obligate all those funds by December of 2024. Gas tax is primarily being devoted to road preservation and associated swale work. Discretionary sales tax, there again, it's being used for road constructions, as well as some of the items that we typically fund out of there for the MIS infrastructure, police vehicles and equipment, the air conditioner replacements and Riverview Park improvements, as well as some major construction vehicles that are allowed under that, from that source of revenue. CRA, the city manager's already covered that pretty well with the CRA budget presentation. Recreation impact fee funds, we allocate that exclusively to future playground and park improvements. Stormwater utility fund, we did add 5 full-time maintenance workers, and we have some part of the vehicles that they would need, and and we allocated for slip lining and pipe replacement. A couple other special revenue funds that can't really be or aren't really allocated for any spending. We have the law enforcement forfeiture fund, so specific items have to come back to the city council to be approved. And the parking in lieu of fund, where we've accumulating those funds to provide additional parking. Cemetery Trust Fund is not really a budgeted account, but we do track that because we are required to keep half of the sales towards operation and maintenance and half the sales towards expansions or adding future sites. Capital Improvement Program is $42.6 million over 6 years. It'll be $10.9 million in the next fiscal year. Some of the largest items next year are for the street work, improving Riverview Park, and stone crop drainage. Turning to the property tax values and millage. We had another good year as far as the increase in taxable values. 7.45% increase was because of reassessments, and 2.84% was because of additions to the tax roll. We did use the 3.1955 for the millage. This is a history of the additions year to year, and the last couple of years have been the record breakers for that time frame. This slide shows the difference between the rollback rate and adopting the 3.1955. It was the same as last year. This shows what would happen with a homesteaded property versus any other type of property. And it shows the change from the rollback, what effect that would be on the various assessed values. And it shows what the effect of keeping the same millage would be because of the reassessments that would be allowed. This is a history of either setting the rollback or going below that over 19 years. So we ask that you approve the millage at the 3.1955, that resolution, and also approve the budget presented to you tonight after you get the public comments and public hearing.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone on the council have a question for Ken? No? Okay. I'm going to open this up now for the public. Does anyone from the public want to address the council on this item? Either one of these items? Say none. Anyone on Zoom?
No one has raised their hand.
Okay, so basically going to close the public hearing. Council, let's consider first Resolution R2457, which is adopting the 24-25 final millage.
Move approval of Resolution R-24-57.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Mayor Dodd?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
And Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, council, we're now going to deal with Resolution R2458, which is the 2024-25 final budget.
Mayor Dodd, move approval, R24-58, final
Second.
budget.
Second.
Second, okay. Is there any discussion from anyone on the council about any of the items there?
I did have a question. I think we had discussion about, in the near future, getting rid of the parking in lieu of fund. Is that for the next fiscal year?
So we will be bringing that back to you all on October 16th with two separate options.
Okay.
So we will have two parking in lieu fund options for you all, one eliminating and one with a fee that we feel is reasonable. So it gives you both options to consider on
Okay.
October 16th.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else have any comments? Then let's have a roll call, please.
Mayor Dodd?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
And Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, we have no unfinished business. Let's go to new business item 13A. Let's talk about something fun. Okay.
I'm going down.
Ladies, would you like to come forward on this? Whoever's going to. This is a discussion on Resolution R2446, which is resolution. I'm looking at the wrong item. I'm sorry. This is a discussion on the Chamber of Commerce's Finally Friday events. They're scheduling events this year, or would like to get permission to schedule events October 18th, November 22nd, December 13th, January 17th, February 14th, and April 18th.
That is
Ladies.
correct. Thank you, Mayor Dodd, Vice Mayor, Councilman, and staff for having us here today. I'd like to introduce Robin Rafe, our Chairman of the Board, who will ask for your permission to continue Finally Friday.
Okay, can I interrupt you for a couple minutes?
Absolutely.
I'm going to take about a 3-minute recess. Councilmember Jones just walked out of the room, so
Okay.
we'll take about a 3-minute recess.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, why did he leave?
Rife, and we're just here to request, we thank you for letting us have the trial run of the Finally Friday. And as you know, we scheduled 3, we had 2, one was rained out, the last one. But the 2 that we had good turnout. We had about 300 to 400 people come. We closed down Cleveland Street. We had the vendors and the community and the businesses all come together. And it seemed to be a really good people showing up and coming out and enjoying themselves. I saw most of you there on the times that I was there. So we're just asking that you now consider making it a permanent event. We were asking for 6 to 7 months out of the year. Obviously, the hottest months we won't do. We will continue to use Cleveland Street for now until we can come up with another venue or place to do it, street to do it. The feedback we got from the citizens and the community were they liked that street party feel. Mm-hmm. They liked the fact that we closed off the street. And that they loved the coming out. I was amazed at the amount of people that came out with their chairs and their coolers. They went and they looked at all the different vendors and the community, the businesses that were there, and it was just good, positive feedback. So we're asking that you consider making it a more permanent event and allowing us another 6 to 7 months, or we're open to suggestions.
Okay, good. All right, I'm going to open this up to the public, if anyone wants to speak, and then we'll do our thing here. So, okay, thank you, guys. Anyone in the public like to address this? Anyone on Zoom?
No one has raised their hand.
Okay, council, what's your pleasure?
I think it's a great thing. I know I went to the first event and I couldn't believe the crowd difference from the first event to the second. So definitely word got out and people said, hey, you should come on out there. The breeze was great both times. It was a bummer the third one got rained out, but definitely I think it's a wonderful thing for Sebastian to have.
Yeah, I went to both of them, and they were wonderful. I got the opportunity to speak to every single vendor that were there on both times, and they all raved about it, how they were doing, and all the public that was there. I spoke to many people from the public that attended those events, and it was just wonderful. It's beautiful to see that we were able to do something like that here in our city. So, and I think it's something that we should continue. So.
All right, that sounds like a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Councilmember Jones or somebody.
I'll make a motion to approve Finally Friday.
All right.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Okay, let's have a roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
And Mayor Dodd?
Yes, and thank you to the chamber for this.
Yes, thank you
very much.
Have a great evening.
Okay, we're now on to resolution R2446. Staff, would you like to?
Mr. Mayor, we're on, it's an ordinance O2418.
18.
Sorry about that.
18, on page 145.
You were reading the summary and it was talking about
Oh,
a prior
I read
one.
the wrong thing.
That's all right.
Okay, yeah, because.
You were on the right page.
2446 is the one we're going to do away with. Okay, so this
Right.
is now ordinance O2418. Would the city attorney like to read that?
Thank you, Mayor. This is ordinance number O2418, an ordinance of the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, repealing and rescinding Sebastian ordinance number O9742, March 5th, 1997, vacating the Ithaca Avenue from Empress Avenue to Spring Valley Avenue, Empress Avenue from Schumann Waterway to Spring Valley Avenue, Spring Valley Avenue from Empress Avenue to the north line of Lot 21, Block 594, Spring Valley Avenue from the south line of Lot, sorry, I missed a line there. There's a lot of words. From Empress Avenue to the north line of Lot 21, Block 594, Spring Valley Avenue from the south line of Lot 22, Block 594 to Crawford Avenue, Alexis Street from Spring Valley Avenue south to the limit of plat, and Alexis from Day Drive north to the limit of plat's right-of-way, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for conflicts, severability, conflicting twice, discoverability, and effective date.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, I understand that the applicant may be on Zoom. Is there someone on Zoom?
Yes.
Okay. City staff, would you like to make a presentation?
Good evening. So on August 28th, a developers agreement was approved by Resolution 24-46. And part of that developers agreement, you agreed upon rescinding Ordinance 97-42 in regards to public roadways that were vacated back in 1997. So that's what's being presented before you tonight. I understand the applicant is also on Zoom. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. I have one question, and it's, which of these two entrances and exits is going to be the construction entrance? Does anyone have any idea on that? The applicant maybe? Okay, I know you're not going to answer that. Is there someone from the applicant that can raise their hand that might want to answer that?
Good evening, it's Rebecca. How are you doing? Rebecca Miller?
Yes, hi, Rebecca.
Hi, so sorry I'm not there in person this evening. It's raining like cats and dogs where I'm at, so we decided to stay put. I hope everyone stays safe through the storm. With regard to the construction entrance, we have not actually designed where the construction entrance is going to go yet, but we are amenable to working with the city and whatever their preference is.
Okay, all right. And I'll tell you the reason I bring that up is that there's nothing in the developer's agreement that stipulates that any damage to either Day Drive or to Empress Drive outside the subdivision that may be caused by the construction traffic needs to be mitigated by the developer, and that's not in the development agreement. So we'll have to work through that process, I think, some way, once it's decided how they're going to do that. Is that okay with you guys? Is that okay with the applicant?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay.
If we cause any degradation, we'll absolutely be there to repair it.
Okay, all right. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this? Seeing none. Is, council, what's your pleasure?
Move approval of ordinance O-24-18.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Let's have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Mayor Dodd?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Dixon?
No.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay. Let me turn to my page. All right, we're now on to Resolution R-2444, which is accepting a fee in lieu of land dedication. Would the city attorney like to read the resolution language?
Sure. Resolution number R-2444, a resolution of the City of Sebastian, Florida, approving participation in the fee in lieu of land dedication program and covenant revenue with the Land for Cross Creek Addition, Inc., owner of property located off of Yearling Trail, property ID 39334, Sebastian, Florida, providing for conflicts, scrivener's errors, and effective date.
Okay. City staff.
Good evening. So this is for the preliminary plat for Cross Creek Lakes addition, which was approved back in 2023. And as they're going through the process, they're looking at their recreation, and there's certain requirements that they have to meet. If they're not able to meet their requirements, we have this ability for them to do a recreation in lieu, which is being presented before you tonight. So staff has worked with them in regards to having a fee be placed in a trust fund for future recreational needs.
Okay, when you say a trust fund, Brian, would you like to address that, how that's going to be handled?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and kind of tell you what the plan is for the fund. So what would happen is this money would basically go into the Recreation Impact Fund to be able to use for recreational improvements within the zone and within that area. In discussions with the representatives for Cross Creek Lake Additions, we actually in this coming fiscal year have budgeted a project at Bryant Court Park to replace the playground. And with that was a budgeted item. Bryant Playground is the closest park to this community. So in discussions with them, we had a lengthy discussion and determined that, you know, they could see their money go to action pretty quickly within the next fiscal year, if they, you know, we would allocate those funds to that project. So that's what's going to happen with these funds, is they're going to be allocated to the Bryant Court Playground project, which will then free up those funds so we can utilize those funds for the Friendship Park Playground, which is an unbudgeted replacement that's going to be needed in this fiscal year based on playground inspections recently.
Yeah, it's a good use of the funds. And it does say that in here, but use the word trust, and I didn't know about the recreational things, and, you know, you get caught I get caught sometimes in those language and that thing. So, okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address this? Seeing none. Council, what's your pleasure on this thing?
Move approval of resolution number R-24-44.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any comments from anyone on council? And let's have a roll call, please.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Mayor Dodd?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dixon?
Yes.
And Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, we're now on to 13D, which is the consideration of a purchase order for Underwater Engineering Services, Inc., in the amount of $53,684 for the Stonecrop project Gopher Tortoise relocation. Would the staff like to bring us up, please?
So as Underwater Engineering Services remobilized for the Stonecrop project at the end of June, early July, they found gopher tortoise burrows quite sporadic around the job site. Our internal environmental technician went out and found 10. Then we notified them to go forward with the survey from FWC for relocation, because each burrow would need 25 feet around it protection in order to keep the tortoise in its location, but that is not possible with the construction that they're doing. So everything there has been on hold. We just received the FWC permit. They are allowing us to relocate 7. It costs about $6,600 per tortoise. We will only be billed for the number of tortoises that they find and relocate. Just because we find a burrow does not mean there is one in there. So we are asking for this to be approved, and we are using discretionary sales tax funds that are FEMA FDEM approved project. We went back when the project came in at a higher bid. FEMA has changed the amount that they're willing to fund the project, so we actually did get $1.1 million back that the city does not have to fund. So we've been using those funds for other discretionary sales tax projects. So we anticipated some additional costs, so we're looking to use those DST funds.
Okay. If they actually find 10 and they're going to let you relocate 7, is there some issue with the other 3 that we have to change the overall project design, or what do we have to do with that?
That is where, as we get close to that 7 number, we're going to be in contact with FWC to see what we can do. Their permit, the application only allows 10 before a different type of permit. But I think we have to go tortoise by tortoise and see how many they find.
Okay. Well, it seems like the longer we wait to get this project done, the more things come up that stop us from getting it done.
Yes.
I wish we'd done this, 9 years ago or so when it first came up?
Always.
With this approval, they will be out there next week.
Okay, good.
Well, that's good then, because we need to get moving. That stone project need to move forward, because when we get these storms in, it's gonna.
The construction team is waiting to do larger construction until December, just because of storm impacts, but we can do the smaller things such as the gopher relocation, so we can prepare for December.
Okay, so there's 7 burrows that are on the, I think that's the west side of the project. There's 7 burrows that are there, so if they'll concentrate on those, then that's the 7 they can relocate. And then if for some ungodly reason they actually find turtles in all those, then those 3 that are on the east side, we'll have to come up with some other alternative for them, basically.
Once we hit 7, we have to go back to FWC for approval.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, but I think one of them on the east side doesn't have to be, because it's outside the David?
Yeah,
The
it's,
distance
yeah.
of that, right?
So we might be
Number 10?
okay with that, okay.
Maybe those other ones will have FOMO and they'll follow them over.
Now, from a permitting point of view, if those 7 that are on the west side are relocated, is it possible for them to begin work at that point, and then while they go through the process of trying to relocate the others?
So next council meeting, I'm actually bringing back to you about additional tree removals that they've found that they need to deal with. But they're looking to investigate and remove all the tortoises that they can find before they can bring in any heavy equipment.
Right.
We can't do anything with heavy equipment until we've dealt with the relocation.
All right, okay. All right. Is anyone in the public like to address this? Council, what's your pleasure?
Yeah, move approval.
Mm-hmm.
Second.
Let's go. Get her done.
Get it done.
Yeah.
I think I was reading somewhere in there that the 7 were the most active and the other 3 seemed kind of less active, so they may or may not be there. We can hope.
I'm hoping they've moved on
Yeah, that or they'll be followers.
to other happy locations.
Exactly.
And without digging up the burrow, I mean, you may not ever know if there's a turtle in there.
That's
'Cause
right.
The only way you're gonna know is if they come out and you catch them in your bucket that you put underneath the hole.
Well, they can see the footprints there, and they might be the older ones on the other end. They don't move around quite as much.
They're the senior
Yeah,
tortoises.
yeah. Senior tortoise, yeah.
Okay. All right, I think I have a motion in between all that and a second.
You have a motion and a second.
So, let's have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Nunn,
Yes.
Mayor Dodd,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dixon,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes.
and Councilmember McPartlin.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. 13F.
Good evening, council. So back in July, we put out a bid for it was for the Hangar D build out for the south offices. Back in, when was that? My apologies. I was trying to figure out when we did the first one. Don't have it on my notes, but initially back, I want to say maybe it was June, we put out a bid for the Hangar D offices, and it was for the entire offices, the north and the south. When we had that bid out, we were unable to award the south, so we pulled that scope out. This bid is specifically to build out the south offices at Hangar D. And once we complete this build out, we will complete our grant that we were given by FDOT. So we put out a bid. There were 1,580 contractors notified. We did receive a pretty good amount of bidders. I know it only says 3, but with the other project we did, we only got, I believe, 4. So the 3, and they all came in under our budget because we had the stipulation that we only had $100,000 left for them to complete that project. So that is why, if you see the prices, you'll notice that they are close together. So Pavco Contracting Group, they did submit for the other side, but we had to mark them non-responsive. So now they've come back and we've gone through their references. They've had glowing references. So we would like to move to award to Pavco Contracting Group.
Okay. Anyone in the public want to address this? Seeing none. Council? This looks like pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
to
it
me,
does.
so.
I'll move approval of selecting Pavco Contracting Group.
Second.
Any comments from council? Let's have a roll call, please.
He did.
Thank you. Mayor Dodd,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dixon,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin,
Yes.
and Councilmember Nunn.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, now we're on to selection of Palmdale Oil Company.
That's correct. Good evening again. So we, for about the past 10 years, we've been piggybacking off of a contract with Glover Oil Company to provide us fuel services. So when our new fleet superintendent, David Moore, came on, as well as our public works director, they wanted to look outside to see if there were any other companies that could provide that service. So we issued a bid out for fuel services citywide. We received back bids from 4 companies. Unfortunately, one of them, we had to mark them non-responsive as they did not provide all the required documentation. So we are looking to move forward with Palmdale Oil Company. They did provide the lowest total pricing. So if you look at some of their diesel fuel options, they might be more expensive. But for the gasoline, they do not provide a markup. And if you're unfamiliar with the way the fuel goes, anytime that we get fuel, whenever it's pumped, we have a rate each day. And the markup that you see on this bid is what will be added to that rate that comes each day. So if today it was $2.09, then when we were getting gasoline, the markup would be $0 because that's the markup for 87 unleaded gasoline. So we are looking to move forward with Palmdale, and we still have Glover Oil. I know that was a concern with some individuals. We're still piggybacking that contract. It is still valid, but we've essentially given ourselves a new primary as well as a backup in case something goes wrong.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to address this? Seeing none. Okay. Council?
Move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any comments from any council members? Then let's have a roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
And Mayor Dodd?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. We're now on to the discussion about the interlocal between the city of Sebastian and Indian River County on the anchoring limitation areas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll take this item. If you all remember back September 27th of 2023, I had brought to you all a resolution in regards to the anchoring limitation areas that city staff had recommended on our waterfront area in the Indian River Lagoon that falls within the city of Sebastian boundaries. You all approved that pursuant to section, Florida statute section 327.4108. Only the county can apply with the state for the anchoring limitation areas. So we have to, all this process has to go through the county. So we submitted our resolution to the county to begin the process with this. We have kind of gone a little bit back and forth with the county on an interlocal agreement. They had a couple different options. The city had recommended an alternate option, or one of the options that they had out of the two. They then combined options 1 and 2 to develop option number 3, which is what is currently presented to you all tonight. I'll just state, I'm going to give you a few of my concerns in regards to the interlocal agreement. A couple of them are in regards to the unknown upfront cost. I know that the county has given me a number of $80,000 to $95,000 plus the survey cost, which will fall on the responsibility of the city. Very appreciative of the county, not including the survey, but in regards to the conceptual plan and the installation of the buoys and markers that are required. The county did agree to split the cost 50-50 with the city. So very appreciative for them working with us on that. However, like I said, it is a little bit of an unknown cost. I'm not sure on the survey costs that are associated. Our 3 ALA areas are pretty large on our riverfront area. It encompasses pretty much the maximum that we can do. So each of the anchoring limitation areas can only be 100 acres. So we had to, less than 100 acres. So we had to establish those as less than 100 acres, and it has to be 150 feet from the waterway, intercoastal waterway. So we established those zones. We were able to make it work. So my other concerns are with the interlocal agreement, the responsibility falls, once they're installed, it falls completely on the city. So we would have to be responsible for monitoring, ongoing maintenance, and enforcement of these areas going forward. My concern with that is we obviously are working towards getting a new police boat, but in regards to, we wouldn't be utilizing our police department for monitoring of the buoys and the markers. We would have to allocate specific city staff to go out and assess these. Our response times, we don't necessarily have a boat. We'd have to utilize the police department boat or a boat that's suitable to go out in conditions within the river. We have a boat that can go into our local ponds with stormwater and canals. But if we were to receive a citizen request that there's an issue with the buoy, once we're notified, there is a liability there that we need to get out there and assess it quickly. And I don't know that we necessarily have the resources to do that as quickly as we need to. So those are my concerns with it. Another concern that is looking at this is I know that the city of Vero Beach has already approved the interlocal with the county. I'm pretty sure Indian River Shores has as well. I just didn't receive confirmation on that. So with that, there will be some boats that are pushed out of their anchoring limitation areas. There are plenty of other spots for those boats to go between Vero and Indian River Shores and Sebastian. However, we could potentially in the future see an increase of boats anchoring within the areas that we've identified. The last item is that there is no guarantee that the state will allow the 3 anchoring limitation areas that we've requested. They could allow 2 of them, 1 of them, or none of them. So there is no guarantee, even entering into this interlocal, that we'll get approval from the state. So a lot of working things in this, but at this point I'm asking for your consideration of the interlocal agreement so that I can at least get a response back to the county because they're ready to move forward with their bid process and design process with the municipalities that enter the interlocal agreement.
Is the interlocal that was agreed to by Vero Beach and possibly Indian River Shores identical to this?
The one from Vero Beach?
The one we, sorry, we were able to obtain the one for Vero. We didn't get the one from Shores. There were some changes, not a lot. If this goes through, I do have some items of concern as well that I would like to work through with the county attorney.
Okay.
But I don't want to go into all those.
Were the differences monetary?
Let me.
What was the question?
Were the differences monetary?
No.
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 Not
Okay.
monetary.
So the responsibility was still the same between Vero Beach and the county financially as it was.
Correct.
For us. Okay. All right. What kind of? I mean, I don't even understand what the budget would be. It'd be difficult for me to even try to myself put a figure on what the annual budget would be to do what we're obligated to do in here. Not counting the upfront cost. I mean, you talked about $80,000 to $95,000 plus the survey cost, and then there's other things in here from an upfront point of view. So we're probably talking about $150,000 to $200,000 or $150,000 to $175,000 to upfront cost on this, and then we're talking about an annual allocation of funds to do the things that we have to do to monitor it. We're also obligated to repair them if they need to be repaired.
Correct. That would be the city's responsibility.
So we're looking at a pot of funds on an annualized basis to do this. Just exactly what is the scope of the problem that we're trying to deal with?
What is the point?
Yeah, so from our standpoint, there are a few boats that we consider as habitual offenders that we are trying to get out of these areas. It turns into a very lengthy process. Similar to our code enforcement on land, there's a very similar process that turns really lengthy process out on the waterway. Sometimes it's even longer than what it takes on land with code enforcement. So it would help alleviate. I try to do a drive-by just to kind of count the number of boats that realistically right now are anchoring there. And you got to remember, there's also a span of time that they can anchor there. It just can't be over that number of days within a year's period or a 6-month period. So they still would be allowed to anchor there. It's just they got to then pick up and move somewhere else after 60 days.
Yeah, but we have to monitor that.
And we would have to be monitoring it.
So somebody has to go out there,
correct,
log the boat.
Right.
Oh, gosh, how do I mark it like I do the chalk on the tires at a parking area
Right.
on the Vero Beach so that I know that it's,
Be some kind of GIS marking.
Yeah, so I will say to that extent, we did receive our fine grant for our police boat, so we will be getting a new police boat. They would be the enforcement measure on this, and they are planning to be on the water really consistently if we get this new boat. So I can say that that's going to happen. Enforcement of it, I think it's something that we can manage because they'll be on the water on a weekly basis, numerous days on a week. So they'll be able to enforce it that way. It just really comes down to the markers in the buoys, damage, maintenance, ongoing, that we can't continue to depend on the police department boat to go out there and do that. If their responsibility is safety on the water and getting out there and enforcing laws, and trying to depend on that for that isn't something that I want to do.
I know people who set a timer on their watch in Vero, so that they will go out and move their car in the parking spots where they can only park for 2 hours. And they work and then they go out and move their car every 2 hours so that they don't get a ticket, you know. And how are we going to stop that from happening out there? And are we solving the problem? I don't really know.
I don't think so,
I don't
because
think so
even if the boat is marked and then it moves to another location, they have to start the process all over again.
Exactly.
So,
Yes.
that goes to what you were talking about and them marking tires, and if they get out there, move them in time and then move it back. I mean, I just don't, me personally, I would love to have this ALA here, but I don't think this ILA, this interlocal agreement is for us right now with the ALA, because it's just gonna be too costly for us right now, the city. We're already having a tough time with our CRA budget and other budgets, so I just think it's gonna be too expensive for us to maintain those buoys. If one floats out of position, we've got to be on top of it and put it back into position. We have to have boats that are able to do that task as well, and manpower to do those tasks. So it's gonna be difficult for us to do it. I just don't see us doing it at this time. That's just my opinion, so.
No.
Anyone else have any comments?
I mean,
We'll
to me-
consider it in a few years down the road.
yeah, I mean, to me, policy without the ability to really police it and enforce it is a complete waste of money. And to me, a true interlocal agreement would be the county putting forth that policing, that whole effort, the maintenance and whatever, and then we're all of the local communities pitching in the money to do it, not putting all of that money and responsibility on each city. So, because we don't have the tax base they do.
You know, it is a county waterway.
It is.
It is part of the county. I know they don't like to spend their money around here, but, you know, I think maybe when this does come back to us again next time, I would like to see, you know, if we're going to have something to maintain all the buoys, is have something attached to it along what it would cost for if we had to contract with somebody to do all of that work, and who would handle that.
That's a good idea.
If we don't have a boat to do it, because the cost of buying another boat and then teaching your staff to drive it and that whole thing, that's a whole nother big can that has to be opened up. So I think that would have to be something to be considered as a contracted cost for managing and maintaining the buoys as part of it, but I don't think I'm ready for this now either.
No.
Do we have to have the interlocal in order to go through the process of finding out if the state will approve the 3 areas?
Yes, we would have to have an agreement with the county before they're going to submit an application
So
to the
they're
state.
the ones that submit the application?
Yes, it has to go through the county.
Okay, all right. Okay. I think I may have opened this up to the public before, but I'll say, does anyone in the public want to address this? All right, council, what's your pleasure?
I think, do we just need a consensus on this one, or do we need a
No,
vote on this?
I think we need no, it's a resolution. We need to either approve it or disapprove it.
All right.
I move that we disapprove.
All right, second.
Okay.
Was that right? I don't know.
I think the vice mayor made the motion, and Councilmember Jones did the second.
I made the motion to put the kibosh on this.
You were going to make that motion, weren't you?
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Mayor Dodd?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Dixon?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we're on to the golf course.
I'll get this started. I know we have Greg here that he can kind of help fill in the gaps if you all has additional questions. But during our budget workshop, we had a lengthy discussion in regards to the golf course and being able to fund future projects and making sure that they had sufficient funds. So with that, we took your advice and kind of went back and looked at our rates going into next fiscal year. And I kind of want to start this whole thing off with, there is a resolution R15-07 that allows the city manager and the golf course, the director of golf course, to establish rates on an annual basis. However, I felt as though, based on the lengthy discussions we had had in our budget workshops and in an effort to continue to be transparent, that it was best for us to bring our recommendations to city council, just for you all to provide some input, tell us whether you completely agree or disagree, or if there's, you know, different fees that we're charging that you want to look at us amending, we can do that. So with that, we presented to you all our municipal rates for the FY 24-25, which would go into effect October 1st. We did look at the annual membership rates that we were charging and increase those based on the usage and the amount of memberships that we have. We also did adjust the language description for a family membership. And the biggest change, or one of the changes that we have throughout this document, is that there was always a range of fees that would be charged. And in my discussions with Greg, it was we kind of came to a solution that we wanted to just establish the rate so that it was known, it's out there. The only item that we have a range on is in regards to members' daily rate walking, whether it's 18 holes or 9 holes, because that does vary, whether it's in the summer, heat of summer, we allow them to walk in the afternoons if you're a member for free. But that during the season in the afternoons, or when it's allowed to be done with walking, there is a charge at that point. So that's the only area that we have a range set forth in. But all of our rates did adjust to some level, and we're just requesting input from you all. And if there's anything that kind of you completely don't agree with, then we can go back and adjust that. But these would go into effect October 1st.
Mayor Dodd, I don't see an issue with any of the rates that are proposed, and I've took a look at those very deeply, and I don't have a problem with any of the changes on the rates.
Yeah, and in my discussion with Brian, he feels comfortable that these rates will cover that negative amount that was at the bottom of the budget for the golf course, which is what we were concerned with.
Correct.
Making sure that the rates covered that. So I don't have any, I mean, I don't know that we need to do anything, because quite frankly, it's between the city manager and the golf course director to establish these rates. I would suggest, however, that you look at any impact on play, and if next summer, after you've been through a short part of the season, if there's not a negative impact on play, then we might want to consider some of these actually going up a little bit, because the one thing the golf course is going to have to do is start building some type of a reserve fund.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just absolutely no way that without a reserve fund being built, it'll do things like repair. If you get 2 greens that go away and they got to be repaired, we should have a reserve fund in the golf course to handle that kind of stuff if it's at all possible. So, you'll know based on the impact on play whether these rates are going to cause a problem. I've talked to some friends that are members, and I told them they was going to go from $950 to $1,050, and they basically laughed and said, "For that, I play enough out there that extra $100 is fine with me." Yeah. So I don't anticipate you're going to lose a lot of people over these rates. They're not dramatic. There's not a gigantic increase in any of these items in here. So.
Yeah, but we do need to increase too, because there's going to be some projects out there that's going to need pretty soon in the next couple of years, and in particular those front 9 greens and some other stuff. So
so I mean, I would strongly recommend that we take a relook at these during the next budget cycle, based on what impact this has on the play, and decide if we can go a little bit further with the increase in order, because we're going to start padding that reserve fund out there, and it's going to take several years to build up a sufficient enough reserve fund that the city's not going to have to underwrite. Now, I know if we have to replace all the greens for some ungodly reason, the city's going to have to underwrite that. There's not any way that the golf course can handle that. But any other discussion?
I fully agree.
I think you have a consensus that it's okay. You all comfortable?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Now we're on to the final item of the evening. And this is a discussion, Brian, I'll let you introduce it.
Yes, so in discussions, obviously we just had a discussion about rates and the ability to establish a reserve account that is sufficient for projects at the golf course, and looking large-scale projects, not small ones. And one of the things we looked at is that the golf course is committing currently in their budget. Different years have varied, but it's been in the range of 70,000. I think we're looking this year to maybe 80 or 100,000 next fiscal year of a payment from the golf course back to the general fund for a loan that was taken out for construction projects in the amount of $500,000 at the golf course. So in the years of 2022 and 2023, each of those years we were able to repay the general fund $35,000 a year for a total of $70,000. The current debt to the golf course is at $430,000. As I mentioned earlier, I think we were looking this year to make a payment of around $70,000. What discussions were had at the most recent Budget Advisory Committee meeting, and at that point, it was kind of brought up to make a recommendation to City Council to consider writing off the $430,000 loan to the golf course. What does that do? What's the impact? It would allow the funds that they are currently repaying to the general fund to stay with the golf course, and we would allocate those to the reserve fund for the golf course for future projects. And it would not be yes, it would be monies that were not repaid to the general fund, but it doesn't show up in our budget documents as we currently outlay them. It is when we look at our reserve fund in the general fund, it is a number that comes off from the very top number that is shown currently. I think it's $9.9 million. And then when we get that further down, all those items that we don't consider, they're receivables, but we don't have them in cash. That's when we get down to our current $8 million number that's in reserves that we can use for an emergency that you all established at the last meeting. You want at least $7 million. So with that, it would kind of just come off of that top number and a reduction of $430,000. But we just wanted to bring it to you all for your consideration, and it would assist us in beginning to establish a reserve fund. It wouldn't be an immediate impact. It's not like it's going to change the dynamics of the golf course in a year or two, but it would long-term help them from having to pay that amount back to the general fund. They will still be required to make their payments to the building department, in which they also have loans from the building department for construction projects. Those loan payments are still going to have to be made back to the building department enterprise fund. But that is our request tonight, is the consideration of writing off the general fund $430,000 remaining to the golf course, or golf course remaining to the general fund.
Okay, Ken, I have a question. Maybe you can, if you don't mind. So basically mechanically what you're talking about doing is reducing your accounts receivable by $430,000, which in turn will reduce the top line funds in the reserve, which is non-committed, by $430,000.
It nets out no impact really to general fund as far as the amount available for reserves.
So my question to you is this. What if rather than writing off the whole $430,000 receivable, we write off the receivables on an annualized basis by the amount of money that the golf course can pay back? In other words, they're budgeted $70,000 in the 24-25 budget to return. So what if we write off $70,000 of that and then earmark their payment for a reserve account for them? I mean, basically it's the same thing. We're just writing a receivable down over 4 or 5 years as opposed to writing. Here's my issue. I see this kind of like, I don't know, kind of like borrowing money to pay off a credit card, and you don't tear up the credit card. So what my issue is that we don't know what's going to happen at the golf course. And so rather than writing off the $430,000, I would prefer that we do that on an annualized basis in smaller chunks based on what they can afford to pay the city and build a reserve that way. And we can reduce the receivable by the amount, like by $70,000 this time. I mean, if we write the whole thing off, then we're saying to the golf course, you no longer owe that money. Now, next year you're going to put some money in reserves, but we have no control over that. For this $430,000, we have no control over that because it is an enterprise fund. So I'm saying that my preference would be we do this on an annualized basis instead of all at once.
Right, but it would still be the same number at the end of the day, though, right?
Well, at the end of the time frame, it'd be the same number ultimately, right. Yes. We'd still be writing off $430,000 worth of receivables, but we'd be doing it in chunks on an annualized basis as opposed to all at once.
I
Brian,
would
you
much
got
rather just leave it, I'd rather leave it the way it is.
Okay.
And this comes at, because I've been up here a while, and not everybody plays golf. I'm not gonna deny the golf course is a great amenity, but, if you write off the 430,000, then they come back, they need this money for more improvements. So how much is the golf course actually costing the city to run? I think keeping it this way, or as you suggested, possibly writing off 70,000 a year, then you have an idea of what it's costing. Because there's a lot of citizens that don't play golf, and they are concerned about the golf course. And I think if we just wrote off 430,000 and then they come back for more money, it just doesn't look good.
Brian, you got any comments?
Ken got
Or
something,
Ken?
I think.
If I could just clarify, there was $80,000 that was budgeted in the year that we're finishing up to be repaid. We haven't paid it yet, to reduce the 430,000 to 350,000. And then we programmed 100,000 for 3 years and the remaining 50,000 in the fourth year.
Okay.
So it's not like the money
So
is.
you're saying that as it stands right now, sometime between now and the 1st of October, when the current budget year ends, there's a $80,000 payment that's going to be made by the golf course out of the 23-24 budget.
Yeah, it was budgeted that way in this past year,
Okay.
and unless told otherwise.
But we haven't actually made that payment transfer. We haven't taken the cash out of their account and reduced the receivable, basically, for the $80,000.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, the golf course, even though you wrote off the 430 off a general fund, and you want that available to the golf course, it's not available. The golf course doesn't have the cash.
Right.
So it does have to be an incremental building up of that reserve.
Yes. I guess I look at the history, and the golf course has been unable to pay more than like 30 grand of this thing. Any of the years I've been ever looking at the budget, it's not been $80,000. It's not been, and quite frankly, 23, 24, if something it doesn't happen, I don't know where they're going to get the 80 grand to pay that.
The 2 previous years, we paid 35,000
Yes.
because they were able to.
Right.
They had the cash money to pay
Right.
general fund.
And the fact that
But
we
prior
budgeted.
to that, we went several years without any payment.
Right. The fact that we budgeted $80,000 in the 23-24 budget doesn't mean we're going to get 80,000, because it doesn't mean that they have that much revenue in their system, in their cycle to pay $80,000.
Right. That's why I wait to the last minute as we're closing the books to
And
make
the
that
fact that we're
determination
saying
whether
we're
it's
going to budget
affordable.
$100,000 in 24-25, and we've just raised the rates by an amount that's only sufficient to cover their losses for 24-25, doesn't give me the fuzzy feeling that they're going to have $100,000 in 24-25. So, my thing is, if we write off the whole 430 without tying it some way to that physical transaction of funds coming from the golf course to the city, it just concerns me that we'll find ourselves 4 years from now with that 430 receivable being written off and the golf course still not having any reserve funds and having to come to the city to fix the greens or to do this or to do that.
You might want to propose that we amend the financial policies to include statements to that effect in the golf course, that they will set so much aside each year in a capital.
Yeah, my preference would be that we write off the receivable on an annualized basis by the amount of money that the golf course can put into a reserve account. Whatever, if it's at the end of the budget year and they only put 30 grand in there, then I don't want to write off the receivable by more than $30,000. Because we've got to tie it some way to their ability to generate the revenue, as opposed to just writing it off and then hoping they can generate $100,000 in revenue. So my preference would be that we write down the receivable on an annualized basis based on the amount of money that the golf course can place into a protected reserve fund. Now that's what, I think our financial policies would allow us to do that, or would it not?
Yeah, what you're talking about really doesn't have an impact on general fund anyway.
No,
whether
no.
it's 400,000 or 30,000.
Right. So Brian, is that? I just thought about this afternoon. I would have talked to you about it earlier when I was in your office, but I'm reading through this afternoon, and my mind's rolling through it, so.
I mean, I understand that. Basically, what we'll have to do is we'll have to annually, during this time of the year, come to you with what the number is that we can afford to make. Yes, we budgeted 100,000 next year, but this time next year, I may come to you and say, hey, we only have $50,000. Do you approve to write off 50,000 so we can put that in their reserve account?
Yes,
That's
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's fine.
Does that sound reasonable, guys?
Well,
Because this is not an action item as far as I know, right? Or is it?
We were just looking for your consensus on how you wanted us to continue to go forward.
I do. You know, how much is owed to the building fund?
We can't do that one.
I know. I just want to know how much is owed, roughly.
They have the loan that's secured basically
like
with a
700?
note with interest that's repaying, and then there's another $500,000 that they owe that was in addition to taking out that note.
Okay. So, and obviously that's an enterprise fund, so that has to be paid back because this is also an enterprise fund. I kind of have an issue with wiping out a 500,000, 400, whatever it is, a loan from an enterprise account. The purpose of it being an enterprise account is it's supposed to be self-sustaining, self-supporting, self-reliable. It's not supposed to rely on the city's budget for its well-being. And I think Councilmember Partland said it, not everybody golfs, and taking and putting a $430,000 debt back on the city on behalf of a golf course that's not used by everybody sounds a little unfair. I think it's an enterprise fund, and I think they should own their loans. I think they should own them and maintain them until it's paid off, because here's the reality. Within the next 4 years, when this is paid off, they're going to need to borrow another $500,000 or better for the next big project. It's not the first time, it's not the last time, and that's something that has to be looked at in long term. I think raising the rates is going to help that a little, but my opinion is I think it's a bad idea. I think an enterprise fund should do what an enterprise fund's supposed to do.
And couldn't the city look into ways to kind of generate more players and income out to the golf course?
Raise the rates.
Well, I know, we tried, and then they got knocked back down a little bit, but you know, like, take your kid golfing day and just some other things to get people out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and Greg might can speak to this, but I think we're getting really close to the maximum number of rounds we can possibly accommodate on an annual basis.
So then the rates do need to go up.
And so it's kind of a number of where you get to a number of rounds are getting to be too much, so we need to raise rates actually to reduce rounds because the amount of play on the course is taking its toll.
Right.
We probably should raise the rates out there sufficiently to drop the play down by about 10% in order to be able to keep the maintenance requirements on the course down from where they currently are. 10% is an arbitrary number. I don't know what it really is, but there's some point in time where we're at a diminishing return on that. I heard an interesting argument this came from the budget committee, this request right here. And I heard an interesting discussion in the budget committee when they were talking about this. And the conversation was along the lines of that the golf course is truly a park as far as the city is concerned. I mean, it's just like Friendship Park. It's there for the residents. I know we facilitate non-resident play, but it's there for the residents. It's an amenity that the city provides to their residents, yet it gets no funds from the city like Friendship Park does, or like the Barber Street. I mean, you know, not everybody plays softball.
Right.
But we maintain the courts. You know, not everybody does this, has little league teams, but we maintain that. So it's a park. And it gets no funds from the city as a park, basically. And we're telling it to rely on its play. That there's kind of an uneven stance here between it as an asset to the city, just like our parks are an asset to the city. I mean, the survey we sent out, the number one thing that came back from the residents was parks. Okay, so, and if you think about it, that the golf course is really just one big gigantic park as far as the city is concerned, just like our ball fields are, then the city might have to spend, or might be appropriate for the city to spend some funds in maintaining that park. So I don't have any issue, certainly, with that. My problem is I don't want to write off a loan without having some assurance that there's going to be enough funds being generated to write the loan off. So that's why I thought this afternoon about this needs to be done in my mind on an annualized basis with the amount of money they could actually pay back. And if we're going to write it off, let's do it annually as opposed to doing it all at one time.
And I do have a question, and I'm sorry because we're not on this item anymore. Can I talk about it regarding the rates?
Well, actually, the rates could be raised by Brian and by Greg without us being involved.
Right. Because I just had a question regarding the discount card. That's a local card that someone has to, they pay money for it annually? Okay. Because I feel like that could definitely be offered at a higher rate for the non-discount card, because that would bring in more, like you're saying, our local parks are something, you know, that we give money to, the taxpayers are paying money into, having kept up. And our locals who live here and play golf here should receive, I feel, a bigger discount than they are compared to people who are here on vacation and using our golf course. My 2 cents.
Okay, what's the consensus of the council on this item? Are we gonna direct the city manager to go forward with the $430,000 write-off, to not go forward, or to go forward with some option?
If we're going to do the write-off, it's got to be the method it's got to be an incentive to save money. And
Agreed.
I would do it the way you mentioned. If we're going to do that, it's got to be that way.
Right, that's
Agreed.
the only way.
That's the only way.
That's the only way.
Correct. So do we have a consensus on that?
We do.
I think we do.
I think so.
Okay.
And
I'm
we
looking
need
at the clock and I'm thinking, you know.
I think.
Councilmember Jones wants to go to dinner.
Yeah. And I also think maybe every year it comes back about what the write-off will be for that year. We have a discussion on that.
Yes, it will come back to you annually for your discussion and your consideration. And if something changes and the golf course is flush with cash, then you don't write it off that year.
Right.
But, so those are things that we'll bring back, and we'll ensure that that amount gets put into the reserve, and you'll see it in the budget document, that how much we're putting into reserve, so you see that it's actually happening.
Okay, and the first time you bring this back should be sometime in September, because we're at the end of the 23-24 budget cycle, and I don't know whether there's any money in the golf course that can be paid back this year. But Ken said that there was a budget of $80,000 in that 23-24 budget. So there may be some funds that can we write off in that time frame.
Mr. Mayor, if I may make a recommendation, is I think our best approach, since we close our books on October 1st, is annually to bring it back to you actually after October 1st. So then we kind of know how much money we have there. So then it would kind of be a retroactive type situation.
That's fine.
Ken, does that make sense? I mean, because I don't know that we can commit like now tonight.
I do like that idea, because once we, maybe not in September, but after the audit, when the audit is finished, we could report to you where we stood at that year end.
Okay.
And say, okay, we're going to grab that part of it.
Okay, you got your marching orders, or are you okay with that?
Yes, sir. No, we're good.
Now we're on city attorney's matters.
Nothing further from me tonight. Thank you.
All right, city manager's matters.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm going to have a few items to discuss. So first thing, I just want to give you all an update, and I'll send it out. I know I've been sending out the reports from the emergency management, Indian River County Emergency Management, in regards to the storm. I just want to make sure the public is aware of what we're getting in regards to the possible impacts that we just received about 30 or 45 minutes ago. Per National Weather Service, on Thursday, Indian River County could begin receiving frequent tropical storm wind gusts from 10 a.m. through 11 p.m., plus or minus 2 hours. The forecasted wind speeds remain at 20 to 30 miles per hour sustained and 40 to 50 mile per hour gusts. The rainfall estimates are 1 to 4 inches. Tornadic activity within the outer wind fields is possible. So just wanted to make sure we get that information out to the public, and Avery's done a great job of getting reports out to the public on our social media. That's the best place for the public to follow the information that the city's receiving, is on our social media channels. And then I'll, just a few updates. So I know it's been discussed a few times that you all have given me consensus on a few items, and where do we currently stand on those items? So I just want to give you an update on some of the consensus items that you all have directed me to work with staff on and where we currently are. So a few meetings ago, we had a gentleman come and approach the city about tobacco-free Florida, and within our parks, I've been working with Mr. Blankenship, and we will be bringing our entire park ordinance back with some changes in addition to just that one. We've got a balloon thing that was passed in a state statute and a couple other changes we're recommending in the park ordinance. So that will be coming back to you all. I think it's October 16th that we're planning to bring that back with the park ordinance on that. Parking in lieu, I know that was mentioned earlier. That's going to come back to you all on October 16th with 2 separate options. I think it's just right to kind of give you all some realistic numbers and kind of hearing your discussion last time, give you 2 options on that. Commercial annexation on US 1. So Alex, Jennifer, and I met again today. The plan is to come back to you all the second meeting in November for some direction. We've got a little bit more research following our meeting today that we want to have the opportunity to look into in regards to our options. I mean, I think we have a pretty obvious option, but we'll come back to you all the second meeting in November on that item. Habitat for Humanity has been a big one. We've tried to keep you all updated on that as this came to council numerous times, but I can tell you that on October 16th, we will have the agreement before you all between the city and Habitat for Humanity, 3 separate agreements for the 3 parcels that had been approved by you all. Septic to sewer, we have applied for our first grant in the past month or 2. There currently has been a little action by the county. They did install approximately 60 linear feet of pipe over in the Veterans Memorial Way, Louisiana area over by the Public Works compound. So we did also have a discussion on Friday in regards to the sewer connection down to the cemetery because we're going into design for our new cemetery building. So we hope to see some action on that in the relatively near future, looking November, December timeframe with them. But no real timeline has come about the rest of the CRA. Like I said, we did apply for the grant funding. They have been notified that we applied for that grant funding. Their most recent request on Friday was if the city would assist with paying for materials. I've asked them to give me a number on what material costs would be for the CRA so that we can accurately look and see what we can do. But once again, we have not received a timeline on the CRA conversion. So that's where we currently are with that. I know we have solicited and got information, and I'll be bringing it back to you all in more detail. The cost for the improved septic systems. Lee has worked with a few vendors within the city to get exact cost estimates on what that would cost. We've also kind of looked at what the county contract when they did the Roseland project with the plumbing company to do the connections from the homeowner to the public to the county system. So we have those numbers as well. I think that contract may be coming up for renewal again though, so those numbers could adjust a little bit. But we will be coming back in the near future to you all to look for a little bit of direction if you want us to look at other options on the sewer item. So that is currently where we are with that, and that's all I have for updates.
Okay, now that's you're talking about septic to sewer and the CRA.
Yes.
And I thought what we asked also for was some type of a document that outlines our options for the septic to sewer in the remainder of the city.
Well, correct. So that was the portion in regards to the septic conversion is the rest of the city.
Yeah.
We already know what the anticipated cost is. That's also kind of looking at piggybacking with the number of homes that we have that are not currently connected. Ross with GIS, he knows exactly the number of homes that have not been connected. We are unable to get clear definition on where exactly the sewer lines have run. There's a little bit of a disconnect there in regards to access that we have to the county system in regards to where they've exactly ran the lines so far. But as far as general wide in the city generally, That is the work that we have done so far. We'll be coming back to you all to look to see if you want us to look into other options and taking this a step further. But I can tell you our staff, we aren't professionals in the sewer industry. So we are a little limited from what staff can do. It may require us going out and kind of getting a firm to look into what the cost would be associated with that and how we could possibly look into offering sewer to our residents.
Well, and I would anticipate that what you're going to come back with potentially is a cost for hiring someone to do that. I wouldn't anticipate your staff would actually produce that. I mean, that's just me personally thinking. Yes. I mean, that'd be a step too far on your staff, I think, to require that they do that.
Yes, so what you will see is we've done the work we could possibly do without really being in that industry. But we can also get cost and bring that back as well so that you all are fully informed when we come back and you know what the potential cost could be.
Okay. Thank you, sir. City Clerk.
Sorry.
Councilmember Nunn.
Nothing tonight.
Vice Mayor Dixon.
Just everyone, please drive safe. There's been real chaos on our roads lately, so I wish people would slow down and drive safe. That's all.
And the only thing I have to say is that sometimes these storms out in the Gulf have a habit of taking a nasty easterly turn. So watch the news tonight and tomorrow morning, because we may find that midday tomorrow we're running from a Cat 3 or Cat 4 storm. So, and that's it for me. Councilmember Jones.
Nothing.
Councilmember McPartland.
Oh, hopefully the storms just bring rain, not too much for the golf course, but with the rain, I am kind of a little bit excited to see how our stormwater, the work that we have done, because I think that's going to be successful in moving the water pretty quick. So I do want to see how that happens, but I don't want to see a big storm. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Given that, we are adjourned.